everybody. I am Eva Wong. Thank you for my little entourage for helping me bring things to the stage. I'm just going to pause for a moment and see if anyone else is coming to this talk. Navigating developer liability in open source blockchain projects. It's quite a long title, and I am very conscious that I am on stage 5 on the last day of Devcon, and right next door we've just had Peter van Valkenburg talk about Tornado Cash, and right now Hart Montgomery is talking about open source licensing in the Linux Foundation. So quite a lot of big acts to follow, and I'm up here by myself after that lovely convivial panel that we just had. So who am I and what am I going to be talking about today? Director of Legal at Parity Technologies Polkadot. So are there any lawyers in the room here? Oh my God! I think we should all go outside afterwards and have a little support network therapy, group therapy session. Congratulations, and I'm so pleased that there are other lawyers around, because you are a Web3 lawyer. And what does that mean? Does this picture resonate with you at all? A little bit, yeah. I think earlier on one of the moderators was asking me, what is a Web3 lawyer and what do Web3 lawyers do? Well, it takes a certain personality type to be happy navigating the uncharted waters of law, where law and technology meet. And simply, the law does not keep up yet with what the technology is capable of. And that it impacts also other areas, not just law. And I think the certain personality type is someone who's curious, who wants to change the world, who also wants the intellectual stimulation, but also doesn't mind the constant anxiety that is associated with being a Web3 lawyer. I work at Parity Technologies. Parity Technologies, for those of you who don't know, co-founded by Dr. Gavin Wood, also ex-co-founder of Ethereum, of course. Parity Technologies is a core blockchain engineering company and one of the main contributors to Polkadot. Hopefully most of you have heard of Polkadot. And why am I talking about Parity Technologies a little bit more? I'm not here to promote Parity Technologies, but obviously those of you who want to know about the tech, please speak to some of my colleagues, who some of them might be around. We just had our own developer conference, Sub-Zero, prior to DevCon, and there are some amazing projects that are going on. And if you're a developer and you're looking to go work somewhere with some pretty exciting things, then Parity Technologies is one of such organizations. What's unique about Parity Technologies, I think, is that there's 75% engineers, 25% support staff, and we exist to support all the engineering, that ingenuity and innovation that happens there. And why? Because as a director of legal, I'm constantly thinking about things that protect the company, but also have to protect the developers, because that's 75% of them spread across 37 different countries. So when I say Web3 lawyers are special, Web3 HR specialists are special. Web3 accounts and finance have to do with new ways of accounting and finance considerations when it comes to working in this area. Polkadot, I'm not going to explain the technology of Polkadot, but I am going to point out a couple of things about Polkadot which are fairly unique, which impact the conversation around liability. Polkadot is one of the largest DAOs, and also the only major Web3 protocol in which all governance is approved and conducted entirely on-chain. So bear those things in mind as I go through this talk. Caveats and disclaimers. I'm a lawyer. The lawyers in the room will know. I am here to talk about law, but none of this is legal advice. And that is a corgi, not a Shiba Inu. There's also jurisdictional considerations. I can tell by my accent, I'm actually Dutch, Hong Kong, Chinese, but I live in the UK. I live in the UK, and I'm qualified in England and Wales. So some of the cases I'm going to talk about are not UK. They are French, they are Netherlands, Dutch, but I'm not Dutch qualified, although I am Dutch, and the US. But the key takeaways from some of these cases that I've sort of absorbed into my mind, the theories of law still apply in other jurisdictions to differing degrees. So it's still worth thinking about as a lawyer, even if it's not necessarily your jurisdiction. Here we go. This talk, I'm going to talk about types of developer liability, or types of liability that affect developers. And then I'm going to talk about some particular cases that might be of interest and what I've taken away from them. And then I'm going to talk about, if you're a developer, how you might want to mitigate and protect yourself. So, first of all, I was assuming that this is Devcon, therefore it will mostly be developers in the room here. If that is the case, then you're a developer. Who are you? What are you doing? That impacts what kind of liability might attract you, or you might be liable for. So you might be an employee, quite likely. You could be a contractor. You could be a contractor for multiple customers receiving your service. You could also be an individual contributor to different blockchain projects. You could be a DAO participant. You could be a DAO participant of more than one DAO. So in these different aspects, you could potentially be liable for different things. On that basis, also worth pointing out that some developers are also co-founders, CEOs, and directors of companies. That is a whole different ballgame of liability that I can't talk about right now, but worth thinking about if you're in that position. So, types of risk and liability. So for those of you who are lawyers, this will be familiar territory. For those of you who aren't, this is the only bit where I'm going to attempt to explain some legal stuff using cartoons. So civil liability, I explain it quite simply as often this is contract-based. So if you agree something with someone, you're going to do something or they're going to do something, you write it down. If one of you is in breach, you sue the other person. That's contract law. Sorry, lawyers. Very, very simple terms here. Negligence, or otherwise the law of tort, which was something that sent me to sleep at law school, but brought to life by this interesting cartoon of a ginger beer bottle and a snail. This is the area of law about duty of care where there isn't a written contract between two individuals or two entities, and it's more about whether there is a reason that one person might be responsible to take a reasonable level of care and could be responsible for another person whether they suffer a loss. So just talking about this, the ginger beer and the snail stems from a 1932 case in Scotland where a lady drank a bottle of ginger beer, there was a decomposing snail in it, and the manufacturer of that ginger beer obviously does not have a contract with the individual who drank that bottle of ginger beer. So how do you establish that the ginger beer manufacturer is at fault? Well, this was the case that established duty of care. And this becomes relevant in the cases that I'm about to go and discuss. And since we're talking about open source as well, an open source license is a form of contract. And a normal proprietary software license is also a form of contract. So when it comes to open source licensing, if you're in breach of an open source license, that's a contract issue. So this is all civil liability. When it comes to criminal liability, and why does it matter to a software developer? Well, obviously, if you create code that intentionally goes about to break the law, i.e. you're going to go hack a government system or you're going to steal some funds, then that's obviously criminal liability. However, in the context of some of the cases that we're thinking about and what might be less obvious and more of the murky waters and unintentional consequences of laws being used against people who don't necessarily expect them to be liable for certain things, it's where you might be developing a technology neutral, a neutral platform that you don't necessarily know how people are going to use it. This is particularly the case in blockchain because of immutable, self-executing smart contracts. Case studies. Most of you will probably recognize some of these people, and there was a keynote speech by Peter van Valkenburg next door just about an hour ago, I think, on Tornado Cash specifically about privacy. I caught a little bit of it. If you haven't seen it, I'm definitely going to go watch it again. I think he did it in poetry form with cartoons. It sounded amazing. I'm definitely going to watch it. I see some nodding there. And I was given a leaflet by one of our ex-Rockstar parity developers, engineers, about Tornado Cash. Anyway, so Tornado Cash, Netherlands case, Alexei Pertsev, US case, Roman Storm. These are ongoing cases, so very much subject to change, and very much, I'm not going to talk about the merits of the case, but I am going to talk a little bit about the impact of some of these cases and why there are some key takeaways for those of us who might be developers or work in a company that is 75% core blockchain engineers. So Alexei Pertsev earlier this year, well, he was arrested. Shock, horror, many headlines, many reasons to be very concerned about this. But the outcome was he was convicted earlier this year for 64 months for his participation in Tornado Cash. Tornado Cash is a privacy mixer, which in itself, privacy is a basic human right. However, some of the activities that happened, a percentage of the activities that happened on Tornado Cash were not quite so innocent. So, Alexei Pertsev, what is the key takeaway here? So the Dutch court said, because he was aware of the misuse of Tornado Cash by criminals, continued to maintain and develop the system without implementing adequate measures to prevent its exploitation for illegal purposes. Contrary to claims of Tornado Cash's decentralized nature, Pertsev and his team exercise effective control over the platform. So the key words there are effective control over the platform, particularly through its web interface. The control implied a responsibility to prevent its use for unlawful activities, a responsibility that was neglected. So this ruling is very precedent-setting. It's in the Netherlands, but it means that open source developers could be held accountable if their creations are deliberately designed or knowingly maintained in a manner that facilitates criminal conduct. That's Alexei Pertsev. The case is now going on appeal. There are funds for people who want to contribute to his legal defense. And Roman Storm, he was arrested a few months afterwards, and the case is going to trial in January next year. That's in the US, and the indictments are actually not so specific to code development, more about conspiracy to commit money laundering, conspiracy to operate a unlicensed money transmitting business, conspiracy to commit sanctions violations. But the indictment does talk about the creation of Tornado Cash as well as the operation and promotion. So the trial is, the discussions in that trial will be instructive for developers of decentralized platforms going forward. Tulip trading. Tulip trading, some of you might recognize this man as Dr. Craig Wright, who is the only person to be proven not to be Satoshi, because he decided to take a whole bunch. I mean, this is a copyright case. I don't want to go too much into the copyright case, but you can read up on it. Copyright case, very interesting. He is not Satoshi. But Tulip Trading is a company that he owns, and what the company did, is that they alleged to have claimed, they claimed to have lost access to billions of dollars in Bitcoin due to a hack. And they argued that 16 Bitcoin core developers had a duty to provide, this goes back to the snail and the beer bottle. They said that there was a duty to provide access and recover the stolen funds by implementing a software patch, because these devs had control over the Bitcoin network. The High Court said, nope, there's no duty of care because of the decentralized nature of blockchain, and there isn't a sufficient relationship that exists that would create these kind of obligations. So, phew, sigh of relief there. However, the Court of Appeal, so you know how I said Alexei Pertsev is taking his case to appeal? In law, in most countries, the first decision means that you can go and get a second opinion on it effectively. You can go and appeal it by creating more, by providing more evidence or providing different arguments. So the Court of Appeal in this case, in Tulip Trading, where the developers were like, yay, we don't have responsibility. Tulip Trading had money and said, okay, I'm going to take this to appeal. We're going to take this to appeal. And the Court of Appeal allowed the possibility that a duty of care might apply, and they sent the case back to the first court because they said that if the developers can alter the protocol, have the authority to implement changes, access user assets on a blockchain, or have significant influence over the network functionality, they might bear responsibilities to others, so they might have a duty of care, and this could possibly establish a new form of duty of care in decentralized contexts, and that could include doing what Tulip Trading were asking these developers to do. So the takeaway here, the court didn't actually find that a fiduciary duty of care exists, but it left the door open to say that it might exist. And because Craig Wright lost his copyright case, or the identity case, this case has now been dropped, discontinued, I mean. Tulip Trading has been discontinued, so we won't actually know. Originally, we were all on tenterhooks on the edge of our seats waiting for Tulip Trading to go to court to see what the outcome was going to be, but right now, we don't know. But the takeaway is that it's inconclusive, but it's possible that developers might owe a duty of care to protect user interests if there's an element of control and influence. That's the UK. So we've gone Netherlands, US, UK, negligence, criminal, and now we go to UkiDAO. 5 minutes time. Okay, UkiDAO. There's a lot of legal cases here, so I'm sorry if I'm speeding through. I'm conscious of time, but there's a lot to cover. UkiDAO is interesting because that's a chatbot, and some of you might know that the UkiDAO individuals, the token holders, the members of the UkiDAO, were served court documents through a chat box. Pretty novel, pretty novel. So yeah, law enforcement finds novel ways of enforcing what they need to enforce when they want to. UkiDAO is relevant. So this is a regulatory matter. This is the CFTC, that's the Commodities, Futures and Trading Commission. They regulate commodities trading, and they felt that UkiDAO was offering commodities trading without proper registration. And the precedent that was set here is that the court held that UkiDAO, a DAO, is a person and could be liable for compliance with these regulations, and not just to be held, but was actually violating the law. And prior to this, it was believed that DAOs and DeFi platforms were protected from regulatory scrutiny because they are so decentralized. This was a pivotal case in the US. Again, it's not necessarily the case in other jurisdictions, but it is the case here that a DAO won't protect you in the US, and an individual token holder could also be liable for the actions of a DAO. There are some nuances here, and I think the lawyers might find this interesting because this was a default judgment case. No one argued against what the regulator was alleging. So that's because it's a DAO and no one stood up. And that might be intentional because maybe nobody wanted to stand up. It was also the case that we believe the founders allegedly formed UkiDAO in order to pass everything over to UkiDAO to avoid liability. So this very much circumstantial and very lawyer-like. I'm saying it depends, and it was in the US. But some key takeaways there, I think, to be had. Then at the end there, we've got the Telegram case, or rather the Pavel Durov case. This year, August. August, CEO of a major communications platform gets arrested in Paris. Like Alexei Pertsev, it was like, WTF, what's going on here? Is Elon Musk going to get arrested if he goes to France? So again, you need to look at the nitty-gritty of what actually was being alleged and the reasons why he was arrested. So he was arrested, and then there were 6 charges brought against him. I am going to go into those 6 charges because it's relevant. There's complicity in managing an online platform to enable illegal transactions by an organized group, refusal to cooperate with law enforcement authorities, complicity in the dissemination of child sex abuse material, complicity in drug trafficking, providing cryptology services without proper declaration, importing a cryptography tool without prior declaration. Those last 2 particularly got quite a lot of us quite concerned because it's cryptography. Now, breaking this down, and if you separate these charges, it's actually unlikely that this will have any impact on developer liability, I believe. And the reason why I think that is because the arrest is based on a French law, not a French law where a CEO is actually the representative who is responsible for any criminal activity of a company. So he was arrested not because he was a developer, he was arrested because he's the CEO. And in France, you arrest the CEO if the company potentially has done something illegal. Have they done something illegal? Actually, it's probably more the case that, yes, it's a technology-neutral platform, and then you have the analogies similar to Tornado Cash. You have the analogies like, if you're a lighter manufacturer, would you be responsible for arson? If you are a manufacturer of a baseball bat, either bat, would you be responsible for, the injuries that bat could have, guns don't kill people. Rappers do, apparently. So the Telegram case brought about loads of discussions about this kind of thing. And it's interesting because Telegram wasn't intentionally developed to allow money laundering or drug trafficking, but it's now a criminal-ready platform, and criminality occurs on it, and Telegram wasn't doing an awful lot to support law enforcement authorities. So this is why he was arrested. It's very much to say, we can do this. We're going to bend the law so that we can achieve the agenda of law enforcement. So in contrast, Tornado Cash was purposely developed to anonymize transactions. Is that illegal in its own right? No. Telegram has, however, now done more moderation and is probably cooperating more with law enforcement. I am going to be very shortly out of time. I better click. How to protect yourself? Lawyers are your best friends. Of course I'll say that. But, you know, lawyers, like I said, you know, Web3 lawyers are pretty unusual. We're here to cooperate, facilitate, collaborate, navigate with developers and with companies. Second way you can protect yourself, to the licensing point, get your code in order. Make sure you do audits. Make sure you are compliant with any open source licenses that you take from out there or you build upon. If you do release code with open source, then consider your licenses with care. So Web3 lawyers are very helpful because we have to interpret all of this stuff. Other ways you can protect yourself. We've talked about decentralization. We've talked about control of networks and influence. If you choose the more decentralized, this is one takeaway I think I have, is the more decentralized, the less likely there is a chance of liability attracting. If you're going to participate in DAOs, which I think most of us probably are a member of a DAO in one form or another, choose carefully what you vote on. And consider how that governance system works. Key takeaways, always do your own research and talk to your lawyers and proceed with caution. I am really over time, aren't I? So, how are the questions looking? Any questions?
All right. So we do have one question over here. Eva, do you want to take this one?
A simple answer is no, but I am getting educated. Can I get a picture of this so that I can go and look into this? This is very interesting. Whoever asked the question, would they like to speak so that you can share your knowledge with all of us? Yes, please. Is that possible? Can we share the mic? Are we allowed to share the mic? Because this is a collaborative education session. Can you come up? Is he allowed to come up? Oh, okay, we'll talk afterwards. This is brilliant. So in the Polkadot world, we actually have a thing called Polka Legal, where all the lawyers get together from the ecosystem and we share information like this. And I would love to learn more because this is interesting. Other questions? Anyone else? Was that the only one?
We don't have any live questions rolling in, but feel free to scan the QR code if you have more questions.
Great. I am over time, but I'm not, because there weren't that many questions after all. Well, thank you very much, everyone.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Eva.
Hope it was helpful.